दिगला कौन सी पूजा किंबा नड़िया बाड़े नथिलु कि पूजा ही नथिला एवं जेतेबेले पूरा काम सरिला मध्य सेतेबेले आमे विधि विधान पालन करनथुलु आमर सौभाग्य जे किशन पट्टनायकर मृत शरीर आसी आम लोहिया एकाडेमी को उद्घाटन कला आज लोहिया एकाडेमी किशन पट्टनायक विषय तो वक्ता माने विशद भाव में आलोचना करेंगे। नलिनी रंजन महांती विशेष परिचय तो सुधीर बाबू देवे मु खाली एति कहबी जे से जहाँ को कहती जेएनयू रो पूर्वतन छात्र संसदर उपसभापति और तापर सभापति थिले एवं से समय रे जेएनयू रो जो थिला कार्यकारी कमिटी किंबा बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स तांको सहित से सालिस विहीन संग्राम करिबारु तांको 3 वर्ष पे यूनिवर्सिटी बहिष्कृत करा जायथिला। तापरे से जो संस्था मानक जोग देइछंती से संस्था सहित सालिस केबे करि नाहंती एवं आउ गोटे तांकर योग्यता है से किशन बाबूंकर कार्यकलाप व्यक्तिगत भाव में भल भाव में जानी तेणु आमे किशन बाबूंकर प्रथम स्मारकी वक्तृता यही वर्ष ठार आरंभ करुचु। लोहिया एकाडेमी जो माने आमे कर्मकर्ता अच्छु एवं विशेष भाव में सुधीर बाबू एम सहित आलोचना करी आमे ठीक कलु जे प्रथम किशन पट्टनायक स्मारक वक्तृता श्रीजुक्त नलिनी रंजन महांती देवे। आज दिन में तांकर वक्तव्य होउची जे भारतर गणतंत्र विलय पथरे कि आज देश में जहाँ घटुची ताहा आमे अंगे अंगे समस्त अनुभव करुचु से विषय रे आज श्रीजुक्त महांती विशेष भाव में आलोचना करेंगे।
1962 मसीह बोधे यंगेस्ट एमपी भाव में किशन बाबू संयुक्त सोशलिस्ट पार्टी संबलपुर ये लोकसभा को जाइए 62 रे एवं किशन बाबूंकर 62 रु 67 पर्यंत जो 5 वर्ष समाजवादी सांसद भाव रहिले से गोटे ऐतिहासिक काम से करुले भी कहीं डॉक्टर लोहियांकर से जो थियोरी दिअणा बनाम 15 अणा भारत सरकार कहले प्रत्येक मनुष्यर साधारण मनुष्यर न्यूनतम इनकम होची 15 अणा किंतु डॉक्टर लोहिया ताको भूल बोली प्रतिवाद करी कहले 2 अणा एवं से 2 अणाटा भी डॉक्टर लोहिया ओडिशा जेतेबेले आसिथिले बोलुथुले रवि राय को धरी सहित आपणकर नियाली एवं से अंचल पाटकुरा अंचल से जो संग्रह करथिले जे साधारण गरीब लोक जो माने पाठ छाड़ी स्कूल को न जाइकरी गाड़िया माछ धरुले और सहित अलग कले ये माछ धरिक बिकिले परिवार चले एवं डॉक्टर लोहियांकर जो दूरदृष्टि एवं तांकर जो गवेषणा और तांकर समाजवाद को लेकर जो चिंता विचार को लेकर से जो अर्थनीति थोई थिले पार्लियामेंट रे एवं किशन पट्टनायक ताको आगु को नहीं थिले और किशन बाबूंकर आउ गोटे बड़ एचिव होची आम ओडिशा रे जो ओडिशार दुर्भिक्ष ओडिशार जो दारिद्र्य कलाहांडीर दारिद्र्य सबुठ बड़ चर्चित थिला हेतबेले एवं सी पार्लियामेंट रे आरंभ करिके सुप्रीम कोर्ट पर्यंत नहीं थिले एवं तार परवर्ती समय रे जो केबीके हला योजना एठी सुप्रीम कोर्ट जी सीनियर एडवोकेट संजय पारिक जी से केस को जितेबाला किशन पट्टनायक केस चर्चा से इनक्वारी होता से इनक्वारी रिपोर्ट भूल थिला तापर ताको पुणी जितेबाला सुप्रीम कोर्ट रे पुणी आरंभ होला संजय पारिक ताको आगु को नेले एवं बही रे ए बही एडी भी एडी उन्मोचन होता बोधे गत 2 वर्ष तले से सी कहले ये हूँ इन्स्पिरेशन ए बही लिखा केबिके हेबा कलाहांडीर दारिद्र्य ओडिशार दारिद्र्य को लेकर पिला बिक्री ठू आरंभ करी इटा हूँ किशन बाबूंकर प्रेरणा किशन बाबू जो नहीं पदक्षेप
दुईटी व्यक्तित्व गोटे विषय वस्तु से भीतर सब संपर्क भी रही प्रथम व्यक्तित्व हेले किशन पट्टनायक जहाँ स्मृति रे आज आम एकाठी किशन पट्टनायक को आम जानी जहाँ बाहर ओडिशा भितर आसला परे मु जानिली जे किशन बाबूंकर उपस्थिति कटक भुवनेश्वर रे अंततः पश्चिम ओडिशा तो भल थिला कटक भुवनेश्वर प्रथमे मु कहबी जे डॉक्टर वीरेंद्र नायक प्रथमे विश्वविद्यालय गोटे कार्यक्रम को लेकिन डाकी जगतीकरण विरोधी अभियान जो चलला गैट विरोध रे जो काम हला विभिन्न सबु शक्ति गुड़ाक एकाठी कर रवि अच्छी गणनाथ पात्र थिले मनमोहन चौधरी समस्त को लेकिन विभिन्न कार्यक्रम गुड़ाक व्यापक भाव यही कटक भुवनेश्वर अंचल रे उपकूल अंचल रे व्यापक भाव आरंभ होता और से कामटी भल भाव डॉक्टर वीरेंद्र नायक करते से समय तापर तो विभिन्न जन आंदोलन रे किसान सांगे आम जाइचु रहीचु देखीचु प्रत्येक वर्ष विकल्प संधानी मंचर जो ओडिशा समीक्षा हुए एप्रिल 1 तारिख दिन से किशन बाबू प्राय जोग देता नियमित भाव प्रथमे जो सब वक्तव्य दि जाऊला ता परवर्ती वर्ष बही आकार से सब बाहर डॉक्टर वीरेंद्र नायक निजे जी जहाँ कहते ऑडियो रे रेकॉर्ड करुले और से गुड़ा सब टिपुले टिपिकी तापर से छपेवा अवस्था को परे जाऊला मत से कहते से कथा मुझे जे मत सबुठ सहज हो किशन पट्टनायक वक्तव्यटा रेकर्ड करने कहीं ना एत स्पष्ट से कहला बेले जो वाक्यटा कहती ताकू सीधा सड़क उतराई हम लिखला बेले भी सीटा सेमती स्पष्ट वाक्यटा आसीज से सबुठ सहज होता किशन पट्टनायक को मुझे लिखुली शुणिकी कथाटा लिखुली से सहज होता किशन बाबू को केवल जन समाजवादी हिसाब से आम देखु नथिले किशन बाबू जड़े चिंतक थिले और जड़े अनन्य विनम्र मनीष थिले समस्त को निज भितर सामिल कराउथिले मतादर्शर मत पार्थक्य जहाँ था ना कहीं मतादर्श जहाँ था ना कहीं विभिन्न आइडियोलॉजिकल थॉट्स भितर जड़े आसिले भी किशन बाबू को से शत्रु बा पर नथिला ता संगे से वितर्क करें आलोचना करें यहीटा बहुत कम लोकों पाखे मुझा देखी समस्त को प्रतिपक्ष को भी निज पक्ष हिसाब से नेबा निजर बोली भाविबा ता संगे चर्चा करवा आलोचना करवा कार्यक्रम प्रस्तुत हवा एभली मानसिकता प्राय नहीं मु कहबी जे किशन पट्टनायक गलापर से शून्यस्थान एबे भी खाली अच्छी किशन बाबू संगे तो भल अनुभूति नलिनी भाईर अच्छी सी भी किसी कहे से किशन पट्टनायक व्यक्तित्व पर मुझे अधिका कहूनी चगला कहले देवबाबू कहले जो भाई भाव किशन बाबूर पार्थिव शरीर को लेकिन लोहिया एकेडमी प्रतिष्ठा करागला सेटा भी ये देश में अत्यंत निरा उदाहरण आईपाई हुए तो आज भी लोहिया एकेडमी समग्र ओडिशा रे गोटे जगह जोटिकी आम मुक्त भाव आलोचना कर चर्चा कर आउ कौटिकी जाकि कौन सी गोटे जटिल विषय वस्तु लोकंर साहस होनी लोहिया एकेडमी से किशन पट्टनायक रविराय धारा चली आमर आम गोटे सांत्वना आश्वस्तिर कथा। आज जी आम गहण आम प्रिय नलिनी भाई नलिनी रंजन महांती तांको ओडिशा रे आमे कम देखीचे कम शुणीचे हुए तो ओडिया से कहला बेले भी से असुविधाटा आसी पारे कहीं से बहुत लोगों संगे ओडिया चर्चा करवा कहवा आलोचना करवा आमे देखिने से उदाहरण बहुत कम किंतु आमे शुणीचु छात्र अवस्था नलिनी भाई कहवा आरंभ कले से स्टॉप हुए नहीं अनबरत चली था नॉन स्टॉप चली था। प्रेसिडेंशियल डिबेट जो हुए यूनिवर्सिटी रे से डिनर पर आलोचना गुड़ाक जो चर्चा गुड़ाक हुए सकाଳେ जाए चली था। नलिनी भाई को शुणापी विभिन्न आदर्शवाद लोक भी एकाग्रह नहीं कि अपेक्षा करते से कौन कहते जानवा से समाजवादी युवजन सभा थे सभापति भी थे सभापति समय तो कथा समस्ते जानी सांबादिक हिसाब से जो कैरियर आरंभ कले पर से किसी घटना तांकटू मु सीधा सड़क शुणी मु आश्चर्य किसी है ही नहीं कहीं से भली व्यक्तित्व सालिश करके कौटी मुंड नुई रहा और केवल पैसा से शेष जाए भी पैसा काम करना से जो जागरण इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मीडिया स्टडीज डायरेक्टर थे सी भी सेमती गोटे जो मानू देखिए आपण मैंने आम सब एक्साइटेड हो आज दिन में इंडिपेंडेंट यूट्यूबर्स कहीकि से जिते मेन स्ट्रीम रे थिले जो प्रकार पैसा पाऊले तार 1/20 भी सी पाऊन किंतु सी तंकर कलम चली आसते माध्यम न मिलूँ बर्तमान जो तथाकथित सामाजिक गणमाध्यम सोशल मीडिया जो कहे से भी से लिखुंट विभिन्न विषय उपर निरपेक्ष चर्चा करुँच कार पक्ष न नहीं कि बहुत सुंदर विश्लेषण उपस्थापना नलिनी भाई जाए कर विषय वस्तु को जदि आसवा विषय वस्तु से निजे कही इज डेमोक्रेसी डाइंग इन इंडिया ताऊपर आम आलोचना करें हुए तो किसी प्रतिक्रिया आसपे डेमोक्रेसी इज ऑलरेडी डेड इन इंडिया किंतु से भली कथा को नलिनी भाई ग्रहण करूना बोध हुए सी गोटे प्रश्नवाची भितर रखिंट और से प्रश्नवाचीटा इंगित करुच्ची जे मरीगला भाई जना पड़े भी हुए तो आईसीयू थी पारे कि मरी ना भारतर गणतंत्र मु आदर नलिनी भाई को अनुरोध करी से ये आसवे और तंकर वक्तव्य रखी।
Kisan Pattnaik was just not a preeminent socialist leader. He was an outstanding socialist thinker. The way Prabhat Chandra said, he was a member of parliament at the age of 32. He was the youngest member of parliament in the 3rd Lok Sabha, 1962 to 67. He was disillusioned with parliamentary politics very soon and switched over to grassroots activism. But all those socialists who stayed in national politics and became national leaders had great regard for him. I remember I was in Patna. I got an invite. Nitish Kumar was holding a function to honor Kisan Pattnaik. That was the year 1999 or 2000. I went there. Nitish Kumar gave a glowing introduction. And then the stirring speech by Kisan Pattnaik for about 40-45 minutes. Lot of food for thought. Well, that was not my first exposure to Kisan Pattnaik's thought-provoking ideas. My introduction to Kisan ji goes back to my JNU days. When I joined JNU, I became friends with some senior students who came from a socialist background. I too had socialist inclination. Together, we formed Students for Democratic Socialism. Very handful of people, Jasbir Singh, Chendal Reddy, later on Jodindra Jadhav and Sunil Gupta, they also joined. The senior most member, Jasbir Singh, called once Kisan Pattnaik to interact with us. That was, in fact, an eye-opener. The conviction, the clarity of thought really impressed us. We decided to work along with Kisan Pattnaik. That time, he was running an organization called Samata Sangathan. What we did, we changed the name of our organization from Students for Democratic Socialism to Samata Yuvajan Sabha, a variation of Samajwadi Yuvajan Sabha, which was a student organization of the Socialist Party. We went to conferences of Samata Sangathan in Banaras, in Patna, in different cities of India, even one in Northeast. And I must say that was one of the most enlightening period of my life. When I left JNU, still I was in touch with Kisan ji, thanks to Professor Anand Kumar, who had joined JNU then. Whenever Kisan ji was in town in Delhi, he would invite him to his residence and also ask some of us to come and meet him. After a few meetings, one day, Professor Anand Kumar told me, Kisan ji's health is failing. And somewhat I feel is that he is financially constrained. Can we pull together some money for him? I was then working in Times of India, Delhi. Anand Kumar invited 8-9 of us to his residence on breakfast for interaction with Kisan ji. We all pulled some money together and gave that envelope to him. He was stunned. He said, absolutely no way I can accept any money in cash. If you want to do something, do for the organization in some way, in cash or kind, but I will not receive any money. There are several other examples. In fact, once Bhatta Das, who is now the Congress president here, Bhatta belonged to Jiva Chhatra Yuva Sangharsh Bahini. He was a very close follower of Kisan Pattnaik. And he used to come for the meetings of Samata Sangathan. Whenever he used to be in Delhi, he used to be in my room. We used to share a room in JNU. Bhatta was telling me that once he was contesting election from Kalahandi, Lok Sabha election. Kisan ji was contesting from Sambalpur, Lok Sabha election. Kisan ji had rejected Biju Patnaik's offer to contest on I think that time, Lok Dal ticket. He said Kishanji was going around campaigning, sitting in the pillion of a motorcycle. Can you imagine? Contesting a parliamentary election, sitting on the pillion of a motorcycle. He said, I felt so terrible. I sent a jeep with a driver and some cash for the fuel. Kishanji was livid. He said, I cannot accept this I contest election on my own terms. You may call this is Puritanism. Yes. This has both strength and weakness. Strength, it gave him a moral halo. But the weakness, it was a liability for his electoral success. When I was in Patna, as the resident editor Hindustan Times there, Samajwadi, Kishanji had floated Samajwadi Jan Parishad to contest elections. They had a conference in Patna, Jadendra Jadhav and all others were there. I did an interview for HT with him, with Kisan Pattnaik. I asked Kishanji, when you call for a Kisan rally, farmers rally, more than 1 lakh people come to attend it. But when you contest election, you end up getting 10,000, 15,000 votes. Isn't that frustrating? Kishanji said, victory or defeat, votes don't define me. They don't bother me. I use elections as a platform to convey the message of democracy. Democracy constituted the fulcrum of Kishanji's worldview. That's why when Praful Babu, Sudhir and Deb Babu asked me about what should be the topic, I said, maybe we should discuss the state of democracy today. Kishanji's view of democracy was very expansive. He did not think of democracy only in terms of elections. He used to say, we have to think in conjunction with political democracy, economic democracy, and social democracy. With the Indian Constitution, with the universalization of the adult franchise, yes, we have political democracy. We have one vote, one value. But that's the top soil of Indian society. Below it, the social and economic structure is severely unequal. Unless and until we make our social economic structure equal, bring in sync with our political equality, we will certainly lose our democracy. Our democracy will collapse like a pack of cards. So, democracy, as he thought about it, economic and social democracy, what is the state today? I will not discuss, that is a separate topic, it needs a longer discussion for it now. I'll discuss what we mean by political democracy, democracy as we mean it. But then, let's talk, what is democracy? What do we mean by it? That famous quotation that we learned in our school days, democracy is of the people, by the people, for the people. But that's just a statement of intent. What is important is what constitutes the basic ingredients of democracy. Experts in the world say there are two components. One, free and fair election in which electorate can choose or replace their leader periodically. That periodically could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, depending on the country. So what is the state of the health of the institution that conducts elections? That's a big measure of the state of Indian democracy. Second component is the rule of law, not rule of an individual. Human history tells us there is a destructive flaw in human nature. Whoever comes to power tries to aggrandize power. That's why the need of democratic institutions which will act as a restraining factor, which will provide checks and balances to one's power. But the question is, you might have all these frameworks in place, but as B.R. Ambedkar said, B.R. Ambedkar was addressing the last day of the Constituent Assembly when the Constitution making process was complete. He said, we have made a great constitution, brought the best elements from all over the world. We have brought in our own wisdom into the constitution. But this will not save our democracy, because ultimately constitution is what the people who operate it, what they make of it. He gave the example, the Weimar Republic in Germany was one of the finest democratic constitutions. Hitler came to power, tore it apart. Argentina had, in fact, in blood, formulated the policies which was taken by the American Constitution. And look at Perón, how he completely destroyed the framework. So it's how the people who are in power handle the democratic framework is the question that we need to discuss. Luckily, we had in our country, at the beginning of our democracy, a leader like Jawaharlal Nehru, a leader who was steeped in the Western liberal democratic values, and he laid the foundation of Indian democracy. It was just because Nehru was there, and he was there for 17 years, that we had democracy surviving in this country. Unlike many countries in the post-colonial world where democratic systems collapsed, authoritarian leaders took in, or military dictatorship began. When after Nehru, his daughter Indira came to power, her commitment to democratic ideas were weak. She was caught up with questions of survival. And that's the reason she started tinkering with the democratic institutions, which ultimately led to the imposition of emergency. Today, we have a leader in Narendra Modi, an ambitious and unscrupulous leader who would like to go to any length to destroy any kind of checks and balances on his power. Many would say, well, he has not imposed emergency, Indira Gandhi did. But it's only because Narendra Modi has not imposed emergency because no leader today can impose an emergency in the country so easily. After the emergency, Janata Party came to power and in 1978 carried out a series of amendments to the constitution and made certain stipulations by which imposing a national emergency would be next to impossible. So what does an ambitious leader do? That ambitious leader then tries to hollow out the institutions which would control his power. What are those institutions? One of the major institutions that we discussed was the Election Commission. From the very beginning, India's Election Commission had a great degree of credibility. But over the years, there were certain erosion in its impartiality. And that's why many major organizations, including ADR, went to the Supreme Court. That the Election Commission should not be a closed preserve of the government of the day. It should be more, that the selection should be more representative. A 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court declared that Election Commission members will be decided by a committee which would comprise the Prime Minister of the country, Leader of the Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. Look, Narendra Modi realized this would cause fetters in his power. Quickly he moved amendments to the statutes and removed Chief Justice from the selection committee and in its place brought in a minister who will do his bidding. It was back to square one. So what we see in the Election Commission today, Rajiv Kumars and Ganesh Kumars, the servile officials who do the bidding of Modi and company. Look at what the Election Commission doing. Only last month, the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, put forward a charge sheet about the election in Maharashtra. BJP trusted, saying it's a case of sour grapes. You lose election, you cry foul. That's right. They are political rivals, they will play that game. What should the Election Commission have done? Election Commission should have conducted an inquiry. But what did this Election Commission do? They said, you have to file an affidavit under oath. Why? Om Prakash Rawat, former Chief Election Commissioner, went on record saying there is no provision in the rules of the Election Commission that you would ask someone complaining that they can complain only when they give affidavit under oath. He said, in fact, Om Prakash Rawat was appointed Election Commissioner during Modi period. He became the Chief Election Commissioner during Modi period. He said in 2018, when the Congress had made certain kind of representations about malpractices in Madhya Pradesh, we had constituted a committee and gone into the process and found what was the truth, and that was acceptable to all parties. But they would not do it. There was a question that was a very precise question that came up. Election Commission's own data showed there are several booths in Maharashtra where by 5 p.m. the number of votes that are being cast and the number of votes cast at the end, there were 500 to 600 vote difference. What did it mean? If after 5 p.m. 600 votes were cast, that means the voting process went on till 5 in the morning, because 600 votes means 600 minutes at least, which would mean the that you would have 10 hours of voting going on. What was the response of the Election Commission? It said, no, we have deferred data. That is the time so many election commissioners came on record saying that earlier it used to be deferred data by 5 minutes to 7 minutes. Today, with technological advancement, you get real-time live data. Election Commission was silent. Look at then, as if to challenge, people asked, why don't you show your CCTV footage? That will show before 5 p.m. who had voted and after 5 p.m. how many had voted. And what was the answer? Answer was, CCTV footage will compromise the privacy of the member, of the voters. Privacy? Voting is a national festival. People enjoy voting, come out in their best colors to come and vote. And why should voting, CCTV is not showing who are you voting for. CCTV is only showing if you are in the queue and you are entering the booth. But obviously they did not want that to happen. And that's why the privacy question was raised. The other question that very well has been debated, and you all must be knowing about the SIR, Special Intensive Revision. Look at the Election Commission's game plan. What was the earlier revision? That you go and check if someone has died, you delete the name, someone has attained the age of 18, you include the name, someone has migrated, remove the name. This time they said, no, we'll completely throw away the electoral roll. Fresh electoral roll will be created and you'll have to run after it. And 11 documents they gave. These are the conditions of eligibility. Jodendra Jadhav and Rahul Sastry traveled through Bihar, used the statistical method and came to a conclusion that if these 11 documents, which included passport, caste certificate, driver's license, then possibly more than 50% people will be deprived of their voting. What was the game plan? That in Bihar, the areas where the Jadavs and Muslims who traditionally do not vote for BJP and its allied party, they would be removed from the game, from the electoral roll, so that it will be a cakewalk for the Modi's BJP. Fortunately there, the Supreme Court stepped in. Supreme Court said that one, they were saying the names that will be deleted from the account will not be shown to the general public. Supreme Court said, you will not only have to make those names, deleted names, public, you will have to give reasons for it. And the other argument, other directive that the Supreme Court gave, if you are using only 11 documents, you will have to now use 12th document, which is the Aadhaar card. Because Bihar has more than 90% people who have the Aadhaar card, and that's why the maximum representation in the electoral rolls can happen. So it's a question is, you try to control, because of this Supreme Court verdict, Election Commission and Narendra Modi's BJP game plan was foiled. But they would be now looking for some other way to make Bihar election foolproof. It's not simply a question of election. That is, Election Commission is the first instrument. What are the other checks and balances on the power of a leader or a government? The other one is the media. And what happens to media? the government has begun to exercise enormous control. Indira Gandhi imposed formal censorship. Modi hasn't. Modi is forcing them to do self-censoring. Why are the media houses falling in line? Because advertisements. Look at Vineet Jain, Times of India's managing director and owner, said, "We are not in the news business, we are in the advertisement business. Advertisement brings in more than 90% of my revenue, and that's why more than 90% of my concentration is on acquiring advertisement. News is just a side show." Naturally, advertising, who advertises in the legacy media? It's the big corporate houses and the big government. And that's the reason why if big government spews off the tap, then media institutions suffer. But that's only a small part of the story. The larger part is many of these media houses today are controlled by the big business. Adanis and Ambanis have entered the media business in a big way. And they have to protect their business. The big business and big government, obviously they go to the government. But even those traditional news businesses, which were Times of India, Hindustan Times, all these traditional, which started off as news business, they also have expanded into a larger business. Some have gone into liquor, some have gone into real estate, some have gone into healthcare. And they have to protect this larger business, and that's why they can get the licenses only if they appease the government in power. And that's the reason they fall in line. Those who refuse to fall in line, what happens? Take the case of NDTV. Pranay Roy's NDTV was not so much of an activist, anti-establishment platform, but it showed some critical stories. That was not acceptable to Modi government. What did they do? They unleashed CBI, ED and income tax against Pranay Roy. Seized his passport, made false cases, and made the functioning of the NDTV unviable. And what happened? Pranay Roy was forced to sell his channel to the closest business house of Narendra Modi, the Adanis. Adanis took over. And mind you, the moment this exchange got over, moment Adanis became the controller of the NDTV channel, ED, CBI and income tax went to the court and said, "We have no case against Pranay Roy, we want to close the matter." That's the message to the larger media. If you oppose us, you will be thrown out of your business. That's why you see September 11 this month, all of you who read the newspapers, morning newspapers of national dailies, I must say I was stunned that day. All national dailies carrying in their edit page, word per word, a sycophantic tribute by Narendra Modi to RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat. Why? 75th birthday. What was the story behind it? Narendra Modi had sidelined L.K. Advani and Murli Manohar Joshi and other leaders of his party, saying, "You have hit the 75 landmark, you step aside, younger people will come over, take over." Narendra Modi himself was reaching that milestone of 75 6 days later on 17th of September. So will the same rule that he applied to LK Advani will also apply to him? Narendra Modi knew that his own party men, people from BJP are spineless. They cannot throw him out. So who can force his hand? It's the RSS. That's why he was a supplicant in Mohan Bhagwat's darbar. I have no issue if Narendra Modi would have gone to the RSS chief's office or his residence and prostrated before Mohan Bhagwat. That's their San Parivar affair. We have nothing to say about it. But I have a concern when India's national media are used as a tool for a leader's personal agenda of self-preservation. That is indeed a tragedy, but that is happening because our national media has lost its spine. Remember in the last election meetings how Prime Minister Modi, others of his party men, forget about them. Prime Minister Modi himself was indulging in dog whistling. Hate speeches against the Muslim community, which generally the party ruffians, the BJP's ruffians used to do earlier, that the Prime Minister himself was doing from the podium. Election Commission was silent. Ashok Lavasa gave a note of dissent. He was forced out of the Election Commission. And look at the national media. The national media, which should have hauled him over the coals, just looked the other way. That's the state of the media. So you have controlled Election Commission, you have controlled media. The next, Judiciary. Every authoritarian leader in the world, when they want to impose their authority on a country, first thing they try to control the judiciary, because media can only expose. But judiciary can impose its authority, can prevent the government from doing authoritarian steps. And that's the reason what happened. The moment Modi government came to power, it wanted to control the process of the appointment of the judges. NJSC Act was put in motion, but Supreme Court did its sales in and they didn't succeed. Then Modi government, BJP, decided we must control who becomes a judge. Take the case of K.M. Joseph. In January 2018, the Collegium of the Supreme Court recommended the name of K.M. Joseph, who was then the Chief Justice of the Uttarakhand High Court, for elevation to the Supreme Court. And Modi government would have nothing to do with it. Why? K.M. Joseph had declared ultra-virus when Modi government had dismissed the Uttarakhand government and they had imposed president's rule there. And that's the reason the Congress government, which had been dismissed, was brought back to power. Modi government would not allow K.M. Joseph to come in. For months, despite the Collegium reminded 3 times, it did not happen. Finally, Collegium came to a compromise. Some judges of Narendra Modi's liking were appointed, 3 of them together, and that's how K.M. Joseph's name also came in. But look, see, Joseph's name had come in January, and those who were recommended in August, they were made senior to him. K.M. Joseph was put on the seniority, 3rd in the list. So so that he doesn't become the Chief Justice of the country. Look at the other side of the story. Bipul Manubhai Pancholi. That man was a prosecutor in Gujarat, worked for Narendra Modi as Chief Minister, blue-eyed boy of Narendra Modi. So, when Modi became Prime Minister, he wanted him, he had already made him the High Court judge. And there was a question that time, question of integrity. The Chief Justice of Gujarat High Court raised an issue which was also raised by the Advocate Association, the Bar Association of the state, that this man Pancholi was involved in corruption. And that's the reason why Gujarat Chief Justice recommended his transfer. But Modi government would have nothing to it. Months went by. But when Gujarat Chief Justice became adamant, finally this man was transferred to Bihar High Court, Patna High Court. But look at this. In just about 2 years' time, Pancholi's name was recommended to come to the Supreme Court. That time, Justice Nath, who was Gujarat Chief Justice, he had already come to the Supreme Court. He said, what message will you send? Someone who was transferred as a punishment transfer on charges of corruption to another court, he comes to Supreme Court. Modi government stalled that process, but forced the hand of electorate of the collegium to make him the Chief Justice of Patna High Court. So he became Chief Justice. But in just about 4 months' time, his name again came up for the Supreme Court. And this time Modi government was adamant, we will not accept any ifs and buts. Justice Nagaratna, she raised a voice of dissent. She said, here is someone who is in a seniority list of 58. And there are already 2 judges of the Gujarat High Court in Supreme Court. As per the Supreme Court ruling, there should be diversification. There should not be a 3rd judge from Gujarat in the Supreme Court. But Modi government would not have it. Finally, a compromise was held, and some of the judges that the collegium wanted were put in together, and that Pancholi today is part of the Supreme Court. A corrupt man is now, and Modi's henchman now sitting in the Supreme Court, sitting over our fate and destiny. That's the kind of democracy. You've seen the case of Arun Mishra. Remember that Supreme Court judge who said, while he was a judge of the Supreme Court in a public function, Modi is God's gift to India. And look at that man. He has a record. Not a single of his judgment has gone against Modi government. Every judgment was in favor of Modi government. And that man, Modi government wanted to actually pay respects to him, pay back for his loyalty. And that's why when he retired, he couldn't become Chief Justice because there is a problem of seniority, that rule is followed in the Supreme Court appointment of Chief Justice. But government, a National Human Rights Commission, the chairman is always a retired Supreme Court Chief Justice. But here was a case in which government amended the rules to make Arun Mishra the chairman of the NHRC. That's not all. His brother, Vishal Mishra, was a sundry lawyer in Madhya Pradesh. What was the name to fame of this man? He used to write Facebook posts saying that Nehru, Gandhis are Muslims. That's why they hate Hindus. They must be dumped in the Bay of Bengal. This was his name to fame. And this is a man who was recommended to become the judge of the Madhya Pradesh High Court. As per the rules, to become a judge of a high court, you need to be 45 years of age. He was not there. He was much below 45 years of age. But rules were amended to make Vishal Mishra a judge of the Madhya Pradesh High Court. And if Narendra Modi continues in power and this man comes to the Supreme Court, then he would have the longest tenure, 7 years as Chief Justice of India. This is the reality in which this government is controlling the judiciary. Just see the other way, the Muralidhar, Justice Muralidhar. He was the Chief Justice here. Justice Muralidhar was a judge of the Delhi High Court. And in the 2020 riot case, Delhi riots case, there were 3 senior BJP leaders against whom the charges have been made about indulging in hate speeches. After years, nothing had happened. Justice Muralidhar in the court said, "Give me the action taken report." Produce it. He asked the senior officials and the Home Secretary to be present next day in the court to tell him as to what have been the action taken report after several years. Look at this. Muralidhar's transfer was effected midnight that day so that he could not hold court the next day. He was transferred to the Punjab High Court. So that's a kind of a situation that happens, that is happening. So you have another case of Ranjan Mohanty. That man was accused of sexual harassment in the workplace. He should have been sent to jail. And the government, Narendra Modi government, came to his protection. Came to pressurize the victim to withdraw the case. And to pressurize her, they dismissed her husband who was in police service. They dismissed her brother-in-law who was in police service. And they put up a case to get her dismissed even from the Supreme Court employment itself. And look at this man, so much grateful to Modi government, and gave that Ayodhya verdict. What was that Ayodhya verdict? People who had destroyed the Babri Mosque, supposed to be criminals. They said yes, but let us not get into it because that will create communal disharmony. Are you politicians? You are to give judgment as per law. Veered away. Even no petitioner had asked that they should be in order to build a temple in the disputed site. But this man goes out of the way and declares that a temple be built in the place. Uses the Article 142 of the special powers of the Constitution. So this is the way you have seen the Election Commission, media, and the judiciary. 3 major restraining institutions have been controlled, tamed by this government. Then came the political space. Opposition political space. Look at Vladimir Putin in Russia. He tamed all institutions, but he was not satisfied with it. He had to control the entire opposition and ensure there are no formidable leader in the opposition to challenge him. And that's what Narendra Modi wanted to do here. He unleashed again ED, CBI, weaponization of the investigative agencies. And what happened? Congress, Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi were framed in a National Herald case. Summons, interrogations, court cases. But thankfully, Rahul Gandhi was defiant, did not buckle under pressure. But there were others who were chicken-hearted. Maybe they had a lot of skeletons in their cupboard. Look at Ajit Pawar. Prime Minister Modi goes in the election meeting and says, this man is accused of corruption of 700 crore rupees from the taxpayers' money he has embezzled. I will take measures to ensure that this man goes to jail. That Ajit Pawar, in 10 days goes and surrenders to Modi, and the cases are withdrawn. Look at Himanta Biswa Sharma, the Assam Chief Minister. He was a Congress leader. BJP Assam unit had created a white paper where they said this man in the Guwahati water scam had embezzled the public money. He had built up a network with a consultant from America and made a loss to the state exchequer by several hundred crores. In fact, in America, there was a declaration that Louis Berger, the company he had hired, had paid, that from the investigation it was found, they had paid several $1 million to Indian politician to get the contract. And the only politician who was handling it was Himanta Biswa Sharma. ED, CBI and income tax were all pressed against him. In a month's time, this man left BJP and left Congress and joined BJP, and all cases were withdrawn. He is now the Chief Minister of the state. So it's not simply the political space, the political parties even are the individual spaces. Look at the individual spaces, in the individual capacity in this country, people who are fighting for Indian democracy. What's happening to them? Look at Bhima Koregaon case. Look at Delhi riots case. There are people, activists, intellectuals who have been fighting against this administration, fighting for justice for the people, deprived sections of the country. What's happening to them? They all have been lodged in jail. And that's the message this government wants to give. If you protest against the government, only place is in jail. And there are no cases against them, no trial is happening, but process is punishment. Months, years together, you remain in jail, but because you are put under UAPA or some variant of the Sedition Act, by equating them with terrorists. Look at yesterday, Sonam Wanchak was arrested. What was the charge against him? That under his leadership, there were violence in the state and some people died. Some properties were lost. If that's the basis, then under Narendra Modi's direct watch, officially 1,000 Muslims died, unofficially 3,000 Muslims died. Narendra Modi should have been put in the gallows, if not in jail. And this man is now the Prime Minister of the country. That's the state of affairs. You have tried to strangulate every institution in the country. Election Commission, media, judiciary, political opposition, civic opposition, everyone is being beaten to dust in order to ensure Modi captures power unopposed in this country. That's the reason I say democracy is dying today. But many would say, if democracy is dying, after all, Lohia Academy is organizing this function today, I am speaking here, that means there is democracy. Yes, as Sudhir said, democracy is not dead yet. There are lot of people who are in their individual capacity fighting the battle. There are lot many people within the judiciary. Not every judge has sold his or her conscience for the sake of a few bones from the Modi government. Some still retain their sense of value and justice. The legacy media might have surrendered, but the digital media is fighting the battle of democracy. And we have very many well-known names, from Rabish Kumar, from Ajit Anjum, Urmilesh, lot of people, Ashutosh, and our own Satya Sahu is doing his own bit. Paranjoy Thatuta taking on both the Modi government and Adani so bravely. Anjali Bharadwaj and Praful Samantara here. What battle he is fighting for the oppressed sections of the society, not only here, across the country. It's not simply individuals, even organizations. Praveer Puratast, Newsclick, they put him behind bars for 7 months, destroyed his institution, which was a pillar of strength for the democratic forces. Where? M.K. Benu, Siddharth Bharadarajan, they are fighting the battle. Alt News, Juvaid. Lohia Academy here is, like Sudhir and Praful Babu said, that it's an institution which is providing that platform for holding forth the banner of democracy. We have Sudhir Pattnaik, Samadrusti, which is doing a huge job in keeping that alternative point of view, that defined anti-establishment point of view before. So that's why this entire establishment, Dev Babu, Sudhir and Praful Babu, all of them, and in collaboration with all of you who show solidarity with Lohia Academy, with all the activities that they are doing, are the pillar of strength of our democratic battle. But still I say, all of this will not be able to save Indian democracy. Because we have in this country the big elites, the elites in the academia, elites in the business, elite in the sports, in culture, all are sucking up to Modi and company. In the media, they want to become, you are a professor, you want to be a vice chancellor, member of certain board. The media houses, forget about Adani, Ambani, they are even the other media houses. In this country, neither Sachin Tendulkar's or Shahrukh Khan's, whenever this country, the government is doubling down with its authoritarian and communal agenda, is unrolling the Hindutva's tasting menu of love jihads and mob lynchings. And in Manipur, women are paraded naked, but all these dignitaries, their lips are sealed. Why? Because they all want to protect their own establishment. And so long as these are the people who are with this government, obviously this government will be able to continue with its authoritarian agenda. Does that mean that we cannot save our democracy? I don't think so. We can save our democracy, but we have to have millions of the people join this battle, not few number of individuals or a few institutions. Millions of the people. This is Gandhi's land. We need to involve ourselves in Gandhi's Satyagraha. Every ordinary people have to join that battle. Many would say, there is no Gandhi. And ordinary people are powerless before the almighty state. Then we should remember those words of Václav Havel, the Czech playwright who later became the Czechoslovakia's president. At the height of his fight against the communist dictatorship, Havel wrote that famous treatise, The Power of the Powerless, in which he said, the ordinary people have the power to overcome their powerlessness if they refuse to bend to the will and the lies of the dictator. Just involve in small acts of defiance in your day-to-day life. Exactly the same words had been echoed by Senator Robert Kennedy when he addressed the students of Cape Town University in South Africa at the height of apartheid in 1966. He said, my dear young boys and girls, you do not have to resort to heroic messianic struggles. You just have to get involved in small acts of defiance in your day-to-day life. It is from those numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Those are the memorable words. Those are the defiant words. That's why we need to understand we are not helpless, we are not powerless. If all of us, you and me, the entire mass of population who value democracy, join hands together, I am sure we'll collectively undermine the facade of this authoritarian regime in no time. Thank you.
ये शिरोनामा देखिकी मोर गोटे प्रतिक्रिया होता जे जो बिल पथर अच्छी कि मैं पथर अच्छी कि वाक्यांश को बाद देवाक चाहिए एवं आज किंतु जेतेबेले नलिनी बाबू तांको वक्तव्य रखिले एवं जो उद्दीपनार सहित जो उत्तापर सहित से वक्तव्य रखिले एवं तांको निजर उदाहरण देले जे मुझे आज ये ठिया है एते स्पष्ट भाव में कही पारुची तार कारण होची सेया ही ताको ही धरा जाई पारे जे गणतंत्र वंचित तेणु मु भी तांका वक्तृता शुणी एते स्पष्ट एते निर्भीक ताको मु शुणी मोर भी कहीं हृदबोध होची जे गणतंत्र वंचित किंतु गणतंत्र जे मृत्यु आड़क जाऊँगी से विषय में अनेक पुस्तक लिखाई एवं से पुस्तक गुड़ा ट्रम्प जिते आसिले प्रथम सेतबेले प्रथम बारे जिते से आसिले सेतिक बेले जो प्रकार से कांड कारखाना कले से अनेक लोक भाविले जे गणतंत्रटा ध्वंस आड़क जाऊँगी किंतु गणतंत्र बहुत जगार गंडगोल धरी जोड़ा कहले नलिनी बाबू जे भारतवर्ष में गणतंत्र बंचिक रही तार गोटे बड़ कारण होची जे प्रथम प्रधानमंत्री भारतवर्षर पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू थे तांकरी भाई बंचिक रही मुझे सहित संपूर्ण भाव में एकमत।
आज विशिष्ट समाजवादी जननेता तथा आम समस्त चिर नमस्य एवं प्राक्तन सांसद किशन पट्टनायक जो आज स्मारकी वक्तृता प्रथम थर पर भुवनेश्वर में है एवं जो विषय वस्तु थिला भारतर गणतंत्र विलय पथर अच्छी कि से प्रसंग में आज जो भाव में अभिभाषण प्रदान कले डॉक्टर नलिनी रंजन महांती महोदय मुझे विशेष धन्यवाद देवी।